All right, fam, what's going on? So this weekend, I've got good news. I'm going to get into a bunch of videos today. I'm going to do a bunch of things, but man, there's been so many comments to the reaction that my wife and I both did to Dax, the To Be a Man video, to my own reaction. I got to get into the comments. They deserve a response. So I'm going to be getting back at those. But my wife tells a story here in her reaction to my reaction really badly. Really badly. Like, the story doesn't make a lot of sense. And I always talked about doing story time with CaveMan. I got one coming up. How do you know it's God's voice in your head? How do you know when God's giving you an answer? And I asked that one day, and I got a good video. I'm probably going to do some point today. That's not this video, though. So I'm going to listen to what my wife said, the story my wife said, and then I'm going to try to tell the story again because it just doesn't make sense. And I think I heard someone in her comment section talking about me doing some kind of job where I was moving like rocks, I think. No. So let's get into this right now.
My husband is not one of those men. He has never, ever had an issue with getting his hands dirty and working no matter what the job was. And, straight out of high school, he started his own business that he still runs to this day. But there was a time when we lost everything and we had to start from scratch again. And we were living in the middle of New Mexico.
See how that chokes her up a little bit? That was rough for her. Oh yeah, that was some serious. There was growth made by both of us because since high school, I had money out of high school. Like I did well forever. So this was a learning process. I mean, this was all about development.
In a one-bedroom trailer with plywood floors. And at one point in his life, he had said he had made fun of people who drove school buses as a young person. And what job did he end up getting in New Mexico? Driving a school bus, because it was the highest paying job that he could get there.
Pause. Okay. So there's more to that story as well. When I was young, I always had a lifted truck. Like out of high school, I was in that four-wheel drive kind of thing. I was a surfer, so we're constantly throwing boards in the back and all of this stuff. And when I graduated high school, I had the money, I had the dough, so I was spending the money on lift kits and big tires and lifted trucks. And, I'd sit next to the school bus drivers always and think and see these kids getting radical in the back of this bus and just think, man, that's the shittiest job there is. That's gotta be, I felt sorry. I didn't really make fun. It wasn't me making fun, but it was me just thinking, God, that job's gotta suck, right? So I did. I felt that way. And be careful about the things you think because, yeah, later it's ironic. That is the one job. And like I said, I was really egotistical my whole life. Still probably am. Narcissistic. Sure, it takes that. Anybody doing YouTube has got to be able to see that in themselves. It ended up being a rewarding job for me at the time. Getting to know. In the place we lived in, it was the poorest county in the nation, in the poorest state. A lot of the kids I dropped off on school buses lived in like lean-to. A lot of the buildings in that area were like, a broken down ice cream truck pulled up next to the house, and these are like room additions. One kid lived in a house that looked like it was made out of pallets. The add-on was their room, and it looked like it was made out of pallets. So we're talking about a really depressed economy. And, it was tough. It was a tough neighborhood. Some of the people that came to pick up kids at the bus stops were tough. There were some gangbangers out there, to say the least. But getting to know the kids, and I came in firm because it's just my character to be firm, and I was with those kids. And people don't realize, and parents don't realize, you try to do this, what do they call it? What does my wife always say? This free range parenting where you just let your kids learn. In my opinion, that's bullshit. Kids like structure. They like to be set. They like to be told no. They respect it. And they love you more for it. To the parent, you think, like we watched an older lady today, this is the grandma down at the pool, trying to get the little kid to come. And I tell my kids, one time, guys, we're leaving, get out of the pool. One time, they get out of the pool. They know that. They know their dad's serious. And it's not a problem. But this older grandmother at the pool was trying to get the kid out of the pool. You guys know the story. Well, just made a friend, doesn't want to get out. This is probably like a 4-year-old or something like that. But and the grandmother stuck to her guns, and she grabbed that child out. That little girl, I'm sure, got what she promised. You're not going to get to do this and that later on today if you don't do this without making a scene. The kid made a scene, and I'm darn sure that grandmother stuck to it. But the parents didn't, right? Somewhere down the line, that was lost. And my kids asked me about, like, our dog. We've got a really unruly mini bull terrier. I mean, he's gnarly. His attitude is very hard. His drives are extreme. And, I used to train Schutzen a little bit, and some French ring sport kind of practice, right? So I know about training dogs, and I worked with this older German guy who taught me a lot, and he constantly would say, it's going to be the same when you have children. Just remember this. It's firmness, consistency, and a good relationship. They got to know you care, and you want to make up with whoever, the dog, the child, if you have to teach them something. Because it takes a certain amount of something when that little toddler says, no, I will not do it. There has to be something there. With some kids, it's just raising your voice. With others, it might take a little more. I think that's where the Bible comes off and says, you spare the rod and you hate the child. And I believe that. My kids say, why does our dog love you the most when you're the disciplinarian to him? And I said, because they love the authority figure. It's unlike what you think. The one they walk on all the time, and they don't get to show that love and respect. So, I remember a story. In that school bus, I picked up all ages from like grade school to high school, 5-year-olds. And there was this little kid. I had good relationships with these kids. They'd hang out on the back of the bus, and and I had to be tough. I had to be kind of an a-hole in the beginning. I'd have to get their respect, The boy master, he's 5 years old. One day, he's getting sick on the bus, right? And I have to clean the bus up. I see this through the mirror, and somebody's telling me he's getting sick, and I pull the bus over safely. I pull him up to the front of the bus, and I get my trash can, and I hold my trash can, and I just give it to him. And then I could see on his face how scared he is, like really scared, And then the father in me kicked in, which have always been the guy that's like, if someone's sick, I'm leaving. I don't even want to see it, especially with vomiting. And the father in me kicked in, and I could see the fear in his eyes. And, just put my arm on him and told him it's going to be okay. Just let this happen, and he threw up in the trash can. And there's a certain bond there, like there really is. And when I left that job, these kids cried. They brought me gifts. Their parents brought me gifts, and it was a really rewarding job. So, I got to see it from the other side, from the cocky punk and the 4x4, to the person's making this human connection with these people on this bus and these kids, and being something for them there that they didn't have at home. And a lot of them, like, they really didn't have it. I'm not doing that this weekend, so I'm not going to tell that story. But anyway, and I might have a challenge with the rest of this. So let's get back into this video. I've talked enough here. So that's the school bus part. So it's like, be careful about those things that you think about in that way, because it may turn around in your life, in your reality, delivers that very thing that you made fun of or you thought a certain way about, you might find yourself doing later.
And then he would go to his second job after he drove those kids to school, working for a wealthy Rockefeller, moving bricks from one spot in a field to another spot in a field. And then the guy told him, I want you to move them back. And he had to swallow his pride and do that job for $10 an hour to feed and support his family.
Okay, so here we go. Now let me explain this story. This is the first day I went out there to meet them. The very first day. So this guy was a Rockefeller. He also went with another name that sounds like Hank and starts with an S. I think he might own a small town somewhere. Anyway, interesting person. Very cool, very cool. But the story goes this way. This is my first day. So I got the school bus job, and it's making decent money for the time. It's hourly, so there's not a lot of hours you're driving the school bus for, right? So I need something else, and there's nothing in this town that doesn't make $5-6 an hour. So I hear about somebody possibly needing some help for like the day, or something like this. And I cruise out to this farm. They grew maize. They grew, I think it was mostly maize or like hay, alfalfa and stuff like that. That's the kind of farm it was. And they had ripped out all these irrigation channels, right, where they would flow the water from the big wells, and then they would water these fields. So this is like concrete that's just been put up on a dirt bank, and then busted out with a skid steer. And so I get there. There's a construction contractor type person with that kind of skill there, and he works every day for the guy. Anything, a new roof on the barn, new windows in one of the houses on the property, whatever it takes, electrical, sheetrock, windows, roofing, plumbing, you name it. This guy's the type of guy that did it all. And I kind of got the idea that maybe he wanted to have a full-time helper out there. So, I knew this wasn't just helping out for one day. At least I thought, but I wasn't sure. So anyway, I get out there. I meet this guy, this owner, this really elite owner's there. And, just by looking at him, they just carry that, and to paint a picture of me, so kind of got a lot of tattoos. I was juicing, for multiple years before that. I was super swole, and I go out there, all the pleasantries are done. It's time to get to work. And so this wealthy farm owner goes, hey, so do you see that pile of broken up concrete right there? And this was big pile. It was probably head high, and I don't know, like pushed together with a skid steer. It had a lot of dirt in it. It was a gnarly situation. It had rebar, other pieces of ranch wire. It was a mess. And I'm like, yeah, I see it. And I noticed there's a skid steer right there. And I'm thinking, okay. He goes, you know how to operate a skid steer? And I was like, yeah, I do, And I'm thinking, okay, bonus, dude. I love that. This is going to be a cool day. And he goes, I don't want you to use the skid steer today. But what I want you to do is grab those concrete pieces by hand. And I want you to take them there and walk them over to there and then throw them in a pile right up there next to the building. So I'm like, no skid steer, huh? I'm thinking crazy, right? So, okay, whatever. And I do it and I hustle. I'm hustling. I've got blood running down my forearms. I'm getting snagged by wire. I'm having to break this stuff out. I'm getting crap in my eyes. And if you know that area of Deming, New Mexico, dude, the wind blows so hard there. There's like dust tornadoes all around you. It is like the wind. It's got to be the windiest place in the United States. It's got to be one of. I mean, I think I heard Wyoming's pretty damn windy, but you could hold like a big ass chain up and it'll blow to the side. So I mean, and it's like this all the time. So anyway, I work my ass off, and this guy's sitting in a chair watching me. The other dude's working in the building, and the other guy's a super cool guy. He keeps looking over like, and he's shaking his head like, ah, oh, damn, dude, like that's some back-breaking work right there, you know. And then I finish it, and I go over to Mr. Hank with an S, and I say, yeah, I'm done. And he goes, man, that was a good job. He goes, why don't you sit in that chair right there? Let's take about 15, 20 minutes. If you want to have some lunch, or there's an ice chest full of beer, you can have a couple beer right there. So I do. I crack open a coolie. I throw some beers back fast, 15 minutes or so. And I go, okay, so what do you got for me now? You know, I'm want to be eager to work. And he looks me dead in the eye and he goes, so what I want you to do is pick up that concrete that you just put there, and I want you to carry it all without the skid steer by hand and take it all back and put it in the pile that it was in, but this time try to stack it a little more nice. And I'm thinking, and I'm starting to feel it, right? Like I'm taking deep breaths. I'm feeling rage. I'm feeling rage. And I'm talking to God in my heart. And I glance over to the contractor dude. And he looks at me and he shakes his head. And he kind of throws his hands up like, you want to go punch this guy's lights out, dude? Go do it. He looks at me like, I'm going to stay out of it. I'm sorry. You know, he felt sad for me. And I go, give me a second, you know, and I turned around and I prayed, you know. I just put my focus on God, and I'm like, what is it that I need to learn here? You know, like this was a defining moment. And for being somebody, like my wife was just explaining, out of high school, I ran my own business. I worked for myself the whole time. Like this was a defining moment to me. Like I'm being humbled, right? And I'm thinking, you know, we need a job, you know, and this is where this, to be a man, like the YouTuber doing a reaction to this video that's 20, got out of college and never had a real job in his life. You don't relate. You cannot relate to what other men, real men, whatever, I don't know what you call it, but somebody that's really done some real work, you know, and there's just no telling. But when I have the reaction I have listening to that video, because it's years of really hard work, whether you're working for yourself and you don't want to take a vacation because you're worried the accounts that you work for, that you service, are going to go give their work to someone else, so you never take vacations. You stay up endless hours trying to get the work done. And I did that for myself, but now I'm being told by this asshole to do something absolutely crazy out there, you know? And I wanted to beat the guy up, and then I'm like, you know, God put me here. And I was really spiritual at the time. And I'm like, God put me here for a reason, and I'm going to see this through, you know? And I turned around to him, and you can probably see my eyes because I'm so covered in dust. I would come home like just covered in dirt. And I said, okay. And I ran over there, and this time I grabbed the rocks, and I started jogging them. And he's watching me do it. And it was kind of like, let's show this old man what I'm made of, you know? And I worked like that. And then this contractor looks at me and he throws his hands up and he goes, nah, man, no, dude. No, like he wanted me to leave. And so it turns out there was another guy that was there full time with this dude, and he kind of let him go. And I think those two guys were buddies, even though that, that guy that was out there was all cool that day. I think he wanted to see, I think he wanted to see me leave, and get pissed off and get in the face of this old man and all that. But I didn't. I did the exact opposite. And I ran that and I worked as hard as I possibly could. Like I was trying to show off for like a cheer squad, or was trying to show off for the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders or something like that, like crazy hard. And then I finished it, and he came up to me with another beer, and he goes, "There. I've never seen that in my life." He goes, "You've got the job full time." He goes, "Do the bus in the morning, come straight here, spend the whole day, do the bus in the afternoon, leave whatever time you got to leave to get there. You got a full-time job. I don't feel like I ever need to check up on you every day." Boom, like that. And I end up probably moving into the position where he wasn't happy with the other dude, probably because he's not taking it as serious enough or whatever. But so, like, it was a moment like that that I was able to show this wealthy guy that's got people lollygagging on the job. I was able to show him, like, I'll put up with a little shit. I'll suck up my pride. I'll do this. And I did it because I had kids at home. I did it because my wife needed me to try to make the best out of that life we had, so that, we didn't have to grow all our own food, but we might be able to go get some wonderful Mexican food right up the highway from Hatch, New Mexico, where all the chilies are roasted. So anyway, so that's that story. I'm going to have to edit that down because I tell stories kind of slowly. So anyway, guys, I'm going to get into more reactions today, and I just don't know what I'm going to do. All right, peace.
So there are men out there who are dedicated to their families, and that means the world to me. And I feel so bad for men whose wives don't appreciate that, because I appreciate that every day. And you work your ass off for our family, and I thank you for that.
I'm going to take care of her forever. She's given her whole life to me. Mrs. Realistic.